I had already spent a year working part-time in the day job. I had just shifted down from 5 days a week to 3 days a week, which is a fairly significant financial investment. And I felt that I could see the benefits of that year, of having worked part-time. But at the same time, I knew that I wasn't capitalizing on that as well as I could. I recognized that maybe what I needed at this point in time was some external guidance and some external accountability, especially to inject into what I was going to do with the year to come, because I was really excited about what that shift to part-time and more energy and more concentration in voiceover had done. But I felt that if I was going to really double down on this, especially with what it meant to my partner as well, because it's a significant financial commitment, that shift down to part-time, that I wanted to make sure that I was making the most out of it.
Why did you choose me?
That is a really good question. I was trying to think back over how it was that I actually found your name, and I think it was David...
Lawrence?
Yes. Yes, I'm fairly sure that it was his blog that actually name-checked you at one point in time, and I've been reading his blog for a while because he has some really great insights for voice artists. I got the impression from that you had worked with a lot of artists in a similar field, that you were used to working with creatives, and I was interested. And so then I went off basically and made an initial sort of investment to see how this might work, and I picked up Feeding Your Focus. I started working through that, and that gave me a really great taster for what your approach was in terms of your balance of practicality versus some of the ways that you talk about energy and mindset, which are super, super important for actors. And we've had this conversation before, some people just get a little too far into the woo-woo world to make me comfortable. And so it seemed like there was a really good fit there. And to be honest, and I don't mean this to be, this is in no way a negative endorsement for Feeding Your Focus, but there was a point where I'm like, I need this direct relationship. This is great, the Feeding Your Focus thing, but I need to stop this now and start working with you directly.
So what appealed to you about working with a strategic coach for a whole year?
So I had a few things that were coming up over the year to come that I was particularly conscious of. My partner and I were planning to have a child, and that worked out timing-wise fantastically, because in our calendar that put basically the birth of my daughter halfway through our year, which was a happy coincidence. I also had a project that was long-term, and we were talking, I think, last week about my attitude of playing the long game, which I absolutely am. So there were a few long-term things that were happening for me where having that, not just basically the initial injection of strategy or talking with someone to say, this is what I think you should be doing, but having someone over that year where so much of my circumstances were changing, to be able to actually go along that journey with me, provide accountability, but also to be there to provide an outside perspective when plans changed. And I think that's one of the things that you taught me that was probably the most important of all, because if we'd only worked for a short period of time, then there would have been points where things came out of left field and I deviated from the plan that we talked about sort of 6 months or 9 months ago, and I would have kicked myself in the bum about it, and that would have been wrong, because what you've taught me about being able to just adapt to the opportunities that come and not holding yourself to the initial plans that you set, but recognizing that circumstances change, so important.
Yes.
You have that ability to just listen to what people are saying, to ask specific questions, to guide conversation, to then get to the heart of what it is that people are looking for. Once people have committed to a specific course, it's then helping them in a way that actually fits with their life, building a manageable plan to then turn that broad notion into specific actions that get people towards that goal. The amount of time and the amount of insight that you bring working with people and how willing you are to be available over that year, first of all, is a tremendous resource. Now, when you marry that with the fact that from the get-go, you have been talking with me about ways to increase exposure, to chase potential clients, giving me strategies around how to actually have those conversations with people, I think if someone is working with you over a year and they're willing and able to take on your advice and to act on those plans, and I know in some cases, basically, I've still got some work to do here, but I can't think of a more of a more effective resource. I mean, no one's a silver bullet. You're not a silver bullet in terms of the fact you can't talk to me and make me a successful voice actor, because that doesn't work. That doesn't happen. But you have given me such incredible plans to go and act on to conquer the world that I've already seen basically the benefits in terms of the bottom line. And because of the work that we did around mindset, there's already a few specific ventures that I can point at where I know that the way that I dealt with that person has been substantially different in terms of the texture of their conversation with me because of the results of our work. And those ventures are now going to launch quicker, or launch potentially where they may not have at all. When I look at the other resources that I've engaged with, or people basically who've touched on similar areas, there's been a much higher price point for a more reduced period of time, and a lot of the information that you get in those cases is generic. But in your case, you're so on the ball, and you tailor everything that you're saying to a specific person and their strengths and weaknesses that I can't think of a comparable investment.
What surprised you most about what unfolded during the year?
I would say probably the biggest surprise has been the specific outcomes that we've gotten. Because the biggest things, the most valuable things for me have not been being able to tick off specific projects, which has happened. Like, work has gotten out there and you've been invaluable in setting strategy around that. But it's been the internal mindset shift that you've given me around being able to see what other people see when they look at me, changing basically the way that I interact with people, especially for the first time, in terms of not thinking of myself as someone who's meekly knocking on a door and asking to be let in, but someone who has something valuable to offer, which again is not a woo-woo statement. I mean, basically, you've helped me see basically the results of what comes from all of the work that I do, all of the VO coaching and all of the acting preparation that I've done. So I'm able to actually see that person instead of seeing myself. So one of the very first things that you started cracking the whip on was how much I was apologizing during Skype calls. And it was huge. And then basically showing me how to address that, so that then basically when people are dealing with me, I'm not this constant drain of energy as well, but someone basically who's there as a motivated collaborator who lifts the room instead of bringing it down.
You're a person who takes their career very seriously, and you have invested in your artistic development, both on camera and voiceover, in making your demos. I mean, you came over to the States to do that, and you are committed artistically to making sure that you're not only growing, but you're also growing rapidly and expanding, into your full potential as an artist. And I know a lot of artists are doing that kind of investment. So what is the investment of working on the mindset and the strategy with someone like me add to that?
Well, it's really funny because one of the messages outside of our work together that I've hit again and again over this year and last year as well has been people saying two things. That one of the most important things is to be enjoyable to work with. And second of all, that skills are great, but marketing and visibility is important as well. And oftentimes that will be more of a differentiator in terms of the work that you get than your actual skills. And I'm not going to say necessarily, well, in fact, I'll talk in generalities rather than specifics, but I have worked with groups of actors where there are people who are, and bless them, they are so dedicated to building an incredible skill set, and they will be better actors than I will ever be, or they are already better actors than I will ever be, and they're continuing to build at alarming rates. But their focus is on building that skill set. And I think that's great, but it's kind of doing a disservice to the world at large if they're not also looking at ways basically that they can get that skill set out there and show all of the results of that incredible hard work to other people.
Yeah. So what has been the overall impact of your sessions with me?
I feel like in the year to come, the image that I present to the rest of the world, or the reality that I present to the rest of the world, is much more indicative basically of where I'm at as an artist, and I'm super excited about that. Basically, looking back, it's almost like I can't recognize who I was last year when I look at myself now. And I guess that comes with everything else that's changed in my life as well around family. So there's been that, and that's been huge. There's also been one of the biggest things that you have taught me is that it's great to have these broad notions or these ideas of, I would like to chase this thing, but you've been so great about just gently leading those notions into, okay, let's create a structured plan around that. How do we measure that? What does success look like for that? So being able to actually turn that into a series of actions that then happen over time. And over our year, having that visibility at a macro level and in a broad sort of, this is the overall strategy of what we're chasing, has meant that I've been able to focus more on a tactical week-to-week basis on the things that actually matter, because it's so easy for me working part-time to just look at basically what seems the most urgent or what seems like the easiest thing to be able to tick a few boxes off, instead of what's actually going to get me where I need to be. One of your focuses from the get-go that you made so abundantly clear was to make me, at the end of this year, independent of you at the level that I'm at now. So I'm excited about the idea of working with you again in a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time. But it's not going to be because I'm at this level and I need to come back and have you tell me the things that I already know. It's going to be because I need to learn a whole new set of lessons because I'm now operating at a higher level. And that's an exciting opportunity. But I feel basically self-reliant in terms of where I'm at now.
That makes me the happiest, because that is my intention. What's one or two of the most helpful, like, perspective shifts or golden nuggets that you're taking away from this experience?
The thing that we've been working on over the year, which has been invaluable, and it's been kind of a bit of a lesson for me, because we always think the most important asset is time. But one of the things that it taught me is that plugging energy leaks throughout the year, like in terms of where my energy goes now, like what I'm actually focusing on or thinking about, I feel like I'm much more targeted because, and it's not that you've talked me through each one of these needing to basically hold my hand on it. It's been the principle that you've been applying. And so I've then been looking or listening just in daily life about where things are going. Classic example for me, it sounds so daft, but it's such an easy hole to fall into. Getting into long Facebook wars about political things that aren't going to change anything at all.
I don't do that.
I don't anymore.
Good.